So I think exactly what you said, the climate change and technology enhancement, which has happened, or advancement, which has happened quite rapidly over the last 5 years, 7 years. Um, and what's happening around the world with climate has pushed forward the transformation I think we are going to see from a regular vehicle to an electric vehicle. I think governments are now forced for cleaner energy. I think what would have been a transitional period, which may have taken a decade or more to happen, is going to be speeded up far, far, far quicker. You've seen already in Europe, they've got very clear deadlines of when to move across from diesel and petrol engines to fully electric engines. So this is enhanced R&D projects. I mean, if I just look at what's happened in lithium in the last 5 years and what the battery can do compared to what it could do, because R&D is just fast forwarded itself to get ready for this change. So I think the component section is going to be the same scenario. We're going to have a fast forward scenario where there will be an evolution in our industry. It's be a good evolution. And I think all the companies in these sectors will change the way they work and what they manufacture and how they manufacture to meet the requirements. It's happened before in the past, and it will happen again, and we will just move forward. And I think it's just going to happen quicker than we all expected. As far as India is concerned, I think it's a slightly different scenario with the number of vehicles that exist in India. You're not going to change this. The change will happen, but the take-up of this change will be a slower process than it would be, for example, in Europe. You cannot get rid of this many vehicles from the roads in a country like India, because the demographics of India is very different. So a car will run here for 50 years because people need it still. Yeah, your middle class and upper class will change to a Tesla maybe, but everybody else will still need a mode of transport which is fueled by the old way, and that will be a process that will take a longer period. And so your manufacturers of components here will have long-term business still going on, because there's 1.4 billion people. It's not going to go away. It will be a slower process, but it will happen. But remember, the slower process doesn't mean it will be less in quantity, because you got 1.4 billion people. So you may still have the same number of electric vehicles on the road as all of Europe does, because you have 1.4 billion people. So you will still have the demand. The technology will come in. The change will happen. It will just be, you will not notice it as much as I would say in a country like UK with 60 million people. And you'll see, oh my God, there's so many electric cars. And today in India, you say, it's hard to notice it, but there is. And so I think the volume quantity will be higher, but it won't be as noticeable. So our shows always represent the market. That's what we're here for. We're meant to be showcasing where the market is. So today in India, for example, if I've got an ACMA Automechanika, my ACMA Automechanika will develop into the other aspects of batteries and all the rest of that, the new components that come in. But these components will still stay. There's a demand for it. So maybe my show will look very similar to this with new segments in 5 years in India. The same show in Frankfurt may look very different. Yeah. Frankfurt may not be the best example because the world comes to Frankfurt. But if you just say, you know, the show that we have in, for example, in Shanghai could look very, very different. It could be more technology-based, more advanced, and the component side could be less. So each market will represent what the show that they're representing in that market is doing. The only one that will represent the world and what the world is doing is Frankfurt. But it always has done. So the regulatory changes have always impacted what happens in any industry sector. So the way we see it, we have to, of course, we follow the regulatory changes, and we know then we can say this means that X is going to happen, or this trend is going to be one way or the other. So our show should reflect that. But the show naturally reflects this because the exhibitors already know the changes. I think the fact is that if you look at it globally, the vision is the same globally for everybody. Only because, like I said from day one, the climate change scenario has pushed the agenda forward. I think the regulatory changes which will happen in India, which will happen in China, you know, for example, in China, their technology was far advanced already, even 5 years ago, than what they released, because they did not want one industry sector to die, which was the combustion engine. They didn't want that to die in one go. But their R&D had already gone way past what they could do. They were forced to release this much earlier because of pressure from a global perspective about what we're polluting. So it's the regulatory changes will always impact every industry and how it grows or how it is dampened or softened. And we as an event organizer always try to reflect that on our show in the markets we're in. Yeah, always do that. It's part of the concept building. And then it's part of the vision that we have to say, okay, where is this industry going? So that's a constant change which we follow. It will always happen. And I don't think that will change for India for sure. It won't dampen the growth that's happening in this sector at the moment. So that's the advantage and the beauty of this. You can see in each market where the growth is coming. So I can tell you today, India is at that point where it's about to ride a wave. Everybody knows this, that India is in a very, very sweet spot at the moment. And if I look at where India is today, and I go back and look at my Messe Frankfurt shows, especially in Frankfurt, which was happening for the last how many decades, I can see that exactly this growth took place 7, 8 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. And these are the concepts that we put in place at that time. So I take that as my blueprint and say, okay, if this market continues to follow this path, this is exactly what will happen during this growth path in India. And we bring those type of concepts, those type of technologies that were there, those type of companies that succeeded so well in Europe now, which is a much more saturated market, to a market like India, where they have a scope to rebuild again, selling that technology back into a market which needs it. And that's what we do. We just develop that based on what we've seen in the past, what we've seen around the world, and then bringing it back here. We went through this with Shanghai in a very quick span of time. And it was all technology driven. So this year's show is to welcome ACMA Automechanika back. It's been 5 years. And so much has changed in the 5 years because we had COVID. And then also, not only COVID, the year we would have had the show, Siam changed the cycle of the Auto Expo. And we have an agreement that we always do. We never clash with Auto Expo. So we had to change our cycle. So we had a 5-year absence. So we had a big demand for everybody to have ACMA Automechanika back in India. A lot of technologies have changed. A lot of things have come up. So the companies are showcasing their new technologies, their new products. We're just really, honestly, the focus has been to get ourselves back, to get the visitors back. Of course, we have an added advantage that Bharat Mobility happened to coincide alongside of ACMA Automechanika. So we've got a very clear combination with our ACMA Automechanika. The OEMs are here. So we've got a plus point which has happened, and we will now start to develop, especially if you think about focused areas like batteries, we'll start to develop those type of things going forward for the next ACMA Automechanika. Our platform is always here for startups, and I have to say that this show compared to my other shows, we have probably the most settled level of exhibitor base or companies in this industry sector. They've been around for many, many, many years. When I look at my other shows that we've run, especially in 2023, we've had record number of startups joining our shows in every one of the shows. Because like you just said, the startups in this country have really grown exponentially. And I think maybe it will happen in this sector. I'm not sure. Maybe it will happen more in the EV sector than in this sector. is my personal opinion. But the platform always exists because there's no better place to build up contacts. There's no better place to build up and get major contracts than in an exhibition platform. So the platform is always open for startup companies here. So with ACMA, we of course have a very close relationship. They are the industry. So we're constantly in touch with ACMA regarding what is happening in the industry, where is the industry growing, what are the growth areas, especially on the knowledge side as well. When we conduct our conferences and our knowledge platforms on our seminars, a lot of that's done through our partners with ACMA. And so that's how we always conduct this exhibition with ACMA, based on industry knowledge and growth, but also the conference and the seminar platforms, where they are at the forefront of providing what's happening in the industry. And that's how we always work together on this.